Welcome to the Business Edge, powered by Technologies Now. This is a show where we explore people, strategies, and technologies, giving today's entrepreneurs a competitive edge. Today's guest is Ron Roberti, Vice President at Resource Commercial Advisors. Ron is a seasoned expert in commercial real estate, especially medical, dental, office, and retail brokerage. He's known for delivering turnkey solutions, guiding clients through complex decisions, and doing it with a true service-first mentality. Ron brings a powerful, purpose-driven side to his business as well through his volunteer service at Casa Lake County, advocating for children in the juvenile court system. Ron, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Well, thank you, David. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just jump right into it. You have a long track record in commercial real estate, especially medical and dental. How did you get to this side of the business? Take us into your journey, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. So in 2000, this is actually my third career.
Okay.
In 2003, I was getting restless, and I was looking at some opportunities to invest in real estate. And so I went to my banker, and he said, you really should get your real estate license. He said, you'll know the vernacular, you'll kind of get the inside track on things. I said, that's a good idea. So he's a smart guy. So I followed his lead, got my real estate license, and then started actually, it was a really hot market in 2003. I started selling residential real estate. And that was going very, very well up until about 2008. We all know what happened in 2008.
Right.
But I really had a passion for the business, and I wanted to stay in the business. What I didn't have a passion for was doing short sales and foreclosures. I literally didn't have the heart to tell people they were going to have to move out of their homes and we were selling, their life's investment. I just didn't have it in me. So I started doing some little small commercial deals. And I said, hey, I really like this. I'm not working on Saturday and Sunday. I'm not working in evenings. And what I really liked about it is that in commercial real estate, typically it's all about the numbers. There's not a lot of emotion in it. Either the numbers make sense from a business standpoint or they don't. So I really like that aspect too. So I went to that period, which a lot of folks do who make that transition. I was doing both at the same time. And I was interviewing with a gentleman, and he said to me, Ron, he said, let me give you a really good piece of advice. He said, if you want to get taken seriously in this business, then you got to wean yourself off the residential tea. He said, no one's going to take you seriously. You might get the little small 1,000, 1,500 square foot deals, but you're not going to do the big deals until you make that switch.
Right.
And so I did ultimately make that switch. It was in about 2010, and it was the best thing I've ever done. And this is how commercial real estate will be how I'll ride into the sunset, so to speak.
Right. Interesting. And then you, from what I've looked up, you specialize in medical and dental. Is that accurate? Were those your first specialties?
So that was a little interesting journey. So I worked for Landmark Partners Commercial Real Estate for 8 years. And then our managing broker took his family, moved him out to Arizona. And so kind of we were left without a home. And I had just finished up a deal with the managing broker from Resource Commercial Advisors. And the deal went really well. And I knew he was looking to grow his firm. So I went to work for Mark Brodson at Resource Commercial Advisors. So I was working with Mark for about a year and a half, and he said, have you ever really had a niche? I said, no, I've always been the guy, I throw the net out, whatever swims in the net, I'll work it, And he said, you're really good at this medical and dental, because I had worked some deals with Mark, and he said, I really think that you should think about focusing on that. And so that's what I've done for the last 3.5 years. It was a bit of a transition. You took a little hit financially because you're really focusing just on that one vertical. But it was really the best thing I ever did. I love working with doctors and dentists. One thing I really like about them, they know that they need you and they appreciate your advice and they appreciate what you tell them. And it's really, really been a great adventure, and I'll continue doing that. I actually had my best year as a professional in 2025.
Congratulations!
Focusing strictly on medical and dental.
Oh, that is fantastic. That is really good. So when you say they realize that they need your help. They realize they're a medical professional and that they're not a real estate professional, where some other people may think they could be a real estate professional as well as whatever else they do.
Yeah,
Is
it's like,
that kind
oh,
of what you're saying?
yeah, it's like, oh, how hard could that possibly be? And what I remind people is that, when you want to, if you want to try and do this on your own, have at it. But keep in mind that the landlord or the seller, they have one person that they're looking after. It's them.
Mm-hmm.
You really need someone to look after you. And what a lot of people don't realize is that in commercial real estate, like in most real estate, we get paid by the landlord or by the seller. So for a buyer or a tenant to work with us, in very, very rare cases, that doesn't happen. 99% of the time, we get paid by the landlord or the seller. So there's no other than a representation agreement. There's no other commitment on their part financially. And what we tell the doctors is, listen, you focus on patient care. That's your bread and butter. Let us kind of handle the rest. And that's kind of how we came up with that phrase from site selection to turnkey. And they really appreciate that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And just to comment on your point about, these professionals, again, understanding their profession, their lane, they stay in their lane and let you drive your lane because you're good at it. That makes me think of a conversation I had with a commercial broker who specialized in franchise locations. So think just a Quiznos shop or something like that. I asked him what his most difficult and challenging deal was. And that was where the franchisee was coming in and wanted to negotiate the real estate deal. And they thought they were the big, negotiator, but didn't know the space. It was literally his worst deal was because someone was trying to help. And they didn't understand it. So I completely understand, your point there.
Well, sometimes people say, "Oh, well, I didn't use a broker when I bought my house." Well, one thing I learned really quickly when I was making this transition between residential and the language, the vernacular, the whole approach is completely different. I have to admit this, when I first started, I had a commercial real estate glossary on my desktop
Yes.
in case a term came up that I wasn't that familiar with. Because there's no training school for commercial real estate. You find a mentor, and I've been very fortunate to have two really, really good mentors with Leo and with Mark. So I've been fortunate that way.
That's interesting. And to your first point, understanding the vernacular, I know on my shelves back here, I've not pulled it in a long time. It's a real estate glossary. It has certainly residential, but it's really focused on commercial. It's back here. I can reference it if I need to, but it's been a little bit. I've kind of been in this space for a little while. But if I were jumping into brokerage again and working in medical vertical, you need a specialist for these sorts of things, a special, someone that understands the space and the vernacular and beyond commercial real estate, understand what your business, your customers, actually need. And you talk about full service turnkey. Can you give us an example of where you've provided this to one of your clients?
Sure. We do this on a pretty regular basis. So we have really two parts of our business. So we have getting the lease or the purchase to the table. Okay, so that's part one, but that's really in some ways really only the start. So I'll give you an example of a doctor. She wanted to be out in Northwest Indiana. So I was able to find a location for her. And what we did was, so we got the lease under control, but then in addition to that, under a separate agreement called project management, this is where the turnkey comes into place. We, instead of the doctor having to do this on their own, we actually go out and we vet the contractors. We find the people who will do the signs for you. We'll find the people who will provide furniture, who will provide IT, the dental or medical equipment providers. And we bring all those people together and we create a team for the doctor. So, and what we do is, and the commitment, of course, there is a financial commitment to it, but from a time commitment for the doctor, all the doctor has to commit to is 30-minute Zoom call a week. And we bring the contractor, the property manager, myself, our architect, the client, and anyone else who might be the on-site project manager for the construction company. And we have a very, very lengthy checklist that we go through every week so we know exactly where we are in the process. We know where the log jams are. We know where we might be running over budget, or maybe we're under budget and the doctor maybe can do an upgrade on, let's say, the tile or something very
Mhm.
unique that they might have wanted for their space. So that's that site selection to turnkey.
That makes perfect sense. And that's quite an added value that you'd be providing, which also means that you and your team that you put together, you become the project manager as well and trying to keep this, on target for that opening date that they have set. And of course, it's, anytime there's build out, this is construction. Anything can go wrong, right? So
And
how do
we
you
even
how do you
think,
mitigate that and make sure everything kind of stays on track?
yeah, and when we're negotiating the lease, we take that into consideration. Like an example, we'll put a clause in there that in the event, let's say we give them 8 months to build out, we'll put a clause in there in the event that a build out is delayed due to permitting issues, which are not under anyone's control except the
Hmm.
village or the state. In Indiana, the state is involved in that. Then we buy them some little bit of extra time. We might buy them an extra 30 or 60 days.
That makes sense. It's almost a force majeure clause that's in the document, and that makes sense because the unforeseens obviously are going to be out there. So, all right, that's really interesting. So, in your space, what do you see happening as far as shifts in the medical and dental real estate in the market, or how things are approached, or is it business as usual right now?
I wouldn't say it's business as usual. We're in an interesting time right now. As you see with my gray hair, I'm 70, and there's a lot of dentists and doctors that are right around either side of that age group. And one thing I never realized, you always appreciate your dentist, especially if you have a really good dentist, but
Right.
I never realized how hard these people, men and women, really work. And so when you start hitting that 60, 65, you start getting close to 70, a lot of them are saying, okay, you know what? It's time to enjoy the fruits of my labor. So we're seeing a lot of practices are being sold and a lot of real estate that's associated with those practices being leased or sold as well. And for me, most of the work that I do, most of the dentists that I work with are associates. So they've been working for a seasoned dentist for
Hmm.
anywhere from, let's say, 2 to maybe 5 years, even some as long as 10 years. And they say, okay, now it's time for me to go out on my own. Banks love dentists and doctors, especially dentists, because the default rate for dentists is very, very low. It's under 2%.
Oh, wow.
So it's so long as they have good credit, they've got some liquidity. The banks are typically very enthusiastic about loaning money in that vertical.
No, that makes sense. And then are you a resource for like the business brokerage side to help them find somebody to sell to? Or is that something that comes along naturally on their own course of business?
So one of our team members, although it's independent, is a gentleman named Rex Plowman, and he's with DDS Match. And DDS Match specializes in helping dentists sell and buy practices. So it's a great synergy to have him as part of our team. When like I'm working on one right now where I have someone where there's real estate involved, but they also want to look at leasing and building out their own, or possibly just buying an existing practice. So we're very, very fortunate to have Rex and his team as part of our overall team at RCA.
That's perfect. That's a good plug for Rex too, obviously here. And it seemed like it was a natural resource or a natural for you to have that sort of resource, in mind. And I've talked with other business brokers and you can see the value they add if they know what they're doing. And there's clearly a range of types of business brokers, from the people that are just jumping into it that just think there's a lot of money to be made, to people that actually know what they're doing. Not to, pick on anyone in particular, but it's good to have those resources. So thank you for sharing that, Ron. So let me ask you a question. So we are a technology company. So I'm always interested in commercial real estate technology and what you use. So what tech tools and systems and resources do you use that helps you do your work and or helps your clients make decisions?
I would say for me, I'm not one of those guys that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can. I haven't dived in with both feet, into AI and some of the other technology out there. But there's two in particular that I will mention. Number one is using virtual design to virtually design an office space. When Dr. Amonte came to me and said he wanted to move across the street to a new space. It was a vacant space. I said, have you ever considered having your future office designed in the metaverse? He goes, I love that idea. So we were able to. We worked with one of our contractors, and they have an architect who's very technologically savvy. He was literally able to design the complete entire practice space down to the lighting, the finishes on the wall, the countertop color, the floor color. And the doctor was able to put on the Oculus and
Yes.
literally walk through his space and see exactly the way it was going to be laid out and exactly the way it was going to be looked. In medical and dental, especially, flow is really, really important because you have a lab, you have a dental hygienist, you have the doctor, you have patients. And he was able to just make sure that this flowed the way he envisioned it. So he got exactly, when I went into there for the grand opening and saw the space, I was floored. It looked exactly like what was designed in the metaverse. So that's really the number one technology that I've embraced, and this is now going to become standard in the industry.
So that's
The
another,
other one is really
yeah.
something as simple as Chat GBT. I had a listing for a property up in Algonquin, and the guy said, "Well, make my case. Tell me why I should come to Algonquin." I'm thinking, okay. So a friend, one of my team members was saying, "Hey, have you ever tried the Chat GBT?" I said, "No, let me give it a shot." I went in there and I put in different questions that posed different scenarios and was able to get this plethora of information that I was able to put together a really, really nice presentation to him about why Algonquin was a great place to be, all the development that had taken place in the last 5 years, what was on the books to move forward with kind of phase two in the redevelopment of downtown Algonquin. And he ultimately didn't end up buying the property, but it showed me that in a very short period of time, that saved me literally hours and hours being able
Yes.
to pull up that information with using the AI technology as opposed to if I was just Googling and researching. I use it all the time for like coming up with nice descriptions of properties and
Hmm.
things like that.
No, that makes sense. You'll have to use the tools that come to us as we, go through this. Yeah, yeah, I know a lot of, yeah, as you can imagine, residential real estate, ChatGPT is a key piece of what they're doing as far as listing descriptions and things like that. So, that makes a lot of sense. Then, as far as doing an analysis on, the lease or the purchase, is that still more of a do spreadsheets and then kind of figure out their what their cash flow is expected to be based on what their lease is? Is that a simple process, or does that become more complex?
Well, unfortunately, one of our team members actually is really good at that, and we've got some Excel templates that we use, so we can take it, we can plug in how much square footage, how much the yearly increases are, how much the taxes are, the CAM, the tenant improvement dollars, and whether we're representing the tenant or the landlord or the
Mhm.
seller or the buyer, we have different templates, but we can provide the same information depending on who we're representing.
Nice. So you have an in-house analyst that supports that. I assume that would be their type of role. So yet more resources for your clients and your prospective clients. And then Ron, what market area do you serve typically?
Well, actually, I can work, and we as a firm can work nationwide.
Excellent.
And the way that we do that, we have what we call a cooperating broker program. So I'll give you an example. Right now, I was referred to a dentist out in California who wants to open up a new office, relocate his office. So we did some research. We found another boutique firm out in that general area. Just so happened my broker knew this broker, and so we come to an agreement as far as commissions are concerned, and who takes on what different tasks. So we handled the client relationship, the broker on the other side, because they know that local market
Hmm.
well and they're boots on the ground. So they'll handle locating the properties and doing the tours of the properties. And then we'll put the proposal together, whether it be the purchase sale agreement or the letter of intent. And we take care of that end. So we as a firm have done work in probably at least 15 different states. And although you're sharing your revenue, it's revenue you wouldn't have had.
True.
So it works out really good. And you're not being forced to being licensed in multiple states, or you'd end up spending most of your time doing continuing ed and tests and fees and all
Yes,
that kind of stuff. So
you would. And then how would you get to know the market as well? You can't know every market,
yeah,
perfectly.
exactly. There's no way, right?
Not to do a good job at it. There's no question about that. No, I'm familiar with that model. Let's shift gears here. Let's talk about volunteer work with Casa Lake County. What is that for you? Why do you do that? And how does that benefit Casa and how does that benefit you?
So I got involved in CASA because I have an adopted daughter, and we were so blessed to have Natalie. We got her when she was 6 months old as foster parents. We ultimately adopted her when she was about 3.5 years old, and I wanted to somehow make a difference. So I got a hold of CASA Lake County. It's a very extensive background check that you go through, very extensive training that you go through. And as fate would have it, my first case was three brothers,
Oh my gosh.
not one, not two, but three. And at that point, they ranged in age, I believe, from about 5 to 11. These boys now are 14, 18, and 19. And so what I did when this case had a happy ending because the mom did everything she was supposed to do and got her three sons back.
Nice.
And when it was over, I just enjoyed so much being involved with these boys. And this was about a year-long process. I went to the mom and I said, how would you feel about me staying engaged with the boys and just being there if they need me? I can come, take them out and take them to a movie and, things that she might not have been able to do financially. Instead of taking on a new case with CASA, I've stayed with these three boys and we've been associated, I think, it's almost like 10 years now.
Nice.
And I see them at least once a month. And like I said, we go out, they each take a turn. What do you want to do this month? And
Right.
we'll go to a movie, we'll go bowling, we'll go out to eat, things like that. So it's really been rewarding. My real thought was that if with a little bit of guidance and a little bit of mentoring that I give them, if they get to a point in their life where there's a bad road to take or a good road to take, that they'll look back and say, they call me Mr. Ron. I want them to think, what would Mr. Ron say if he heard that I did this? And maybe if it helps them make one better decision, then all my time and effort would have been worth it.
Nice. Yeah. No, that's fantastic as to what you do, and obviously it's clearly rewarding for all sides of that equation. So good for you and good for them.
Thank you.
Actually, let's keep it on a personal side for a second here. So, Ron, what do you like to do for fun? What do you?
So I don't play pickleball. One of probably three people in the U.S. who don't play pickleball.
Why not? Come on, Ron. Pickleball.
I have to tell you that the biggest joy of my life is when I have my children and my grandchildren around me. I have three children, three grandchildren. Being Italian, I love to cook. I love to keep everybody happy with food and wine and bringing family together. And I'm an avid reader and enjoy just from an exercise standpoint. I walk. I do some light yoga and things like that. But I'm not a golfer. Even when I was a golfer, I was a terrible golfer. So my knee replacement was probably probably a blessing. Probably saved a lot of golf balls by giving that up. But yeah, I'm really very, very family centric is what brings me joy. And traveling with my wife, we're great travel partners. So we'll be going to Italy in September and going to the East Coast where my daughter Natalie is a traveling cardiac sonographer. She's going to be working out at Yale University Hospital. She'll be there for the holidays. We're going to go out there,
Nice.
stuff like that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you have a great family life and a great good life where everybody supports each other. That is really great. We're gonna move to some final thoughts here, but what I want to ask you next is again more professional, but maybe it brings kind of everything together. So what are the three things you think professionals must prioritize today if they want to stay competitive or even just getting started in commercial real estate or maybe even their own business? Because you're familiar with these business people, these medical business people that are getting into work. What advice would you give?
I tell young people that I come across there's one thing that will never change, and I don't care how advanced we get technologically. I tell them people want to do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. When I go and I sit in front of a new client, sure, do I bring a packet of information with me? But I don't even talk about my business. I talk about them. I talk about what is important to them. Where do they see themselves in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? You know, the old 80-20, I feel in my business, listen 80% of the time, talk 20% of the time. And at the end of the presentation, I'll go, oh, here's a little propaganda you might want to about our company that you might want to, take a
Right.
look at later. I want to know about them. I want to know how I can best be of service to them. And I would say the second thing is, and this really ties into the first, be relationship driven, not transactional driven. If you're the broker that's transactional driven is the one who, once that lease is signed, you never hear from them again, or once the sale is consummated,
Hmm.
you never hear from them again. I always tell my clients that my service to you does not end when the lease is signed or the property is closed on. I'm always here for you. And sometimes those are the favorite calls that I get. I love when I get a call and it says, "Hey Ron, I just had a real estate question, or I was looking at something and I have a question." What does that tell you? That tells me that that person trusts me. I don't care one iota if anything ever comes of that. The fact that I was top of mind when they had a real estate
Hmm.
question was the thing that was important to me, and it means the most to me. Because you know what? The deals will come, the money will come if you practice, if you're relationship driven and your clients know that they can always count on you.
Yes. Yes. Well, Ron, this has been fantastic. Thank you for sharing your insights and your experience. Really appreciate it. And for those listening, you can connect with Ron, I'm sure, on LinkedIn or resource. Take two on that.
Commercial advisors.
All right. I'll have you say it, Ron.
Yes, resourcecommercialadvisors.net.
There we go. Excellent. Excellent. And then if you enjoyed this episode, follow us on YouTube at Technologies Now AI and connect with us on LinkedIn as well to see upcoming clips. Ron, thanks again for joining us on Technologies Now, the Business Edge, a broker's perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. It's really been a pleasure. And you have a nice holiday.
All right. You as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.